And I know one thing that I find as an interesting opportunity of possibly some intersectional overlap is I know Michael talks about how entrepreneurship and innovation in education uh, can also be a bridge between racial and socioeconomic demographics, and that we can create common goals of uh, in a commerce type of way, but centered around uh, effectively helping each other and just making sure that it's self-sustaining rather than profitable per se. And so, if you two would like to discuss a little bit about that, I'd be curious to hear your guys where you see entrepreneurship and
Go ahead,
business playing a
Michael.
role in
I talked a
education.
lot.
All right, all right. I was enjoying listening to you guys. For me, for like for instance, for in our show, we like to say we're crowdsourcing ideas. Like one of the things that we're based on, yeah, we're starting off small, but we firmly believe that a lot of the answers are with the communities that are going through these issues, the people that have the skin in the game. Skin in the game.
Yeah.
I don't think the answers we need are going to come from on high, whether that be
Yep.
some major corporation, the Gates Foundation. I don't think that's where those answers are going to come from. I think those answers are going to come from the people who are going through it, the people with skin in the game, the people who are physically, emotionally, and socially
Investors.
embedded in these problems, right, or in these concerns. So what we try to do in our show, we try to reach out and give people the skills and the information to try to solve these problems, right? To if you have an idea or if you're a startup or whatever, if you have an idea that you can think can help our education system, we're more than willing to listen. And I think crowdsourcing is the crowdsourcing that in that way is a big part of how we're going to fix a lot of our problems. Um, that's just from our point of view.
I know for me personally, the what comes to my mind in the between these topics that we're discussing, that the event that comes to my mind is when I was in grade school, about second or third grade. I started playing Pogs, and for people not familiar, Pogs, small circular cardboard
Hmm.
thing, and the game was played by hitting it with a heavy thing, and if you knocked them over face up, face down, you got to the more you collected, the you would win, and then for the high stakes kids, we would play for keeps. And so I started. People wanted to play, and then but they couldn't get access to Pogs, so I started selling the Pogs on at school during lunch,
Hustling.
and then yeah, I was hustling. And so that's what I was doing,
Hmm.
and I got shut down. The teachers and the administrative kids were complaining that they were spending their money on it, and so I understand having to get shut down because of the logistics of, but there was no follow up about, well, how do we transition that into something that's positive, something that's not going to be against the rules, something that's going to
Sell them in the
cap,
lunchroom
cap
for to help something.
something. I mean, is it part of a fundraiser, or what do we have to do in order to take that and utilize it? And so I think if there's one thing I would like to add to the education system is taking, especially when we run into troubled youth or people that are getting into trouble, is it's often that they have something else going on, and they're actually trying to get some attention to what they would rather be doing, except they're focused on whatever is disrupting their life in one way or the other. And so, like, if we can capture the folks that are that we look at as problems, and this goes touches on the differential in punishment in education between black and white students, is that's kind of the approach that we try to take towards white students that are struggling with issues, or whatever phrasing that is more commonly used with white students than it is with troublemaker, thug kid, whatever else it is with students of color often. And so I think that to me is one really big thing that really captures both the discipline issue and then connecting with folks of color. Go ahead.
So I'm gonna give an example if I can. So my in 2006, my family and I, our big black family, moved to Spokane, Washington. So for those of you who don't live in Washington State, 92% white. Uh, yeah, it's not a very diverse community, and we had lived on the east side of Tacoma, very diverse. And I ended up getting a job teaching at the high school. That school, there's always that school in the community, and it was that school, the one that nobody wanted to be at. But I wanted to be there because those were the kids. I love those kind of kids. So my first year there, it's probably about halfway through the year, and I see a young young black kid, but tall, 6'4". He can't hide anywhere. He's standing near his locker with about 8 other kids around him, and I can tell he's dealing drugs. I didn't actually see the drugs, but I had been around drug dealers before. I'd worked with gangs before, so I recognized kind of the behavior. And I waited until the lunch bell rang, and he stayed at his locker, messing with his locker, and all the other kids disappeared. And I walked over to him and I said, you know what? I'm not going to tell you. I'm not turning you in today. I'm going to challenge you today. I know what you're doing, and I need you to step up and be a leader and lead the rest of these kids to college, not to jail. And he said, what? Lead people? I said, you just led a bunch of kids to destruction right now at lunch. I'm challenging you to step it up and lead kids to college. And this one tear down his face, big black kid. He said, you think I'm a leader? I said, yes, I have no doubt that you're a leader. I just watched you lead people. You're a leader. So it turns out his mom was dying of cancer in Seattle. His dad had brought him out to Spokane to get away from some gang kids, and he came out to Spokane, and his dad ended up in jail. So here's a kid selling drugs, not because he wanted to be a bad kid, but because he needed to pay his mom's doctor bills, and he was paying the mortgage on the house and for all the food that he was eating. That young man today finished college at Whitworth University last year and became the general manager for Ashley Home Furniture. And I believe it was all not just because of me, but because instead of assuming he was a bad kid, I asked him why. And that's what I want to push our education system to get to, is when you see kids behaving in a way that's not appropriate at school, instead of just disciplining them and kicking them out or sending them into some ISS room, you need to ask why. And then our job as the adults is to make sure we answer that why question and give them the support they need to be their best selves. Because I believe every kid has the same potential he did.
That's an excellent story, and I think that captures it quite well.
Brandon, jump in here.
Go ahead.
Let's let Brandon jump in here. Look, he's a real education expert.
I'll get Brandon in just a moment. I did want to just mention quickly, because we are going to have Chris Reichdahl on, I believe, next week, and so I did want to give you the opportunity to kind of not to just like take shots at him or anything, but to just kind of give us some information about what it is that separates the two of you, why one of you would be a better candidate, and more importantly, what I want to know is, regardless of which of you wins, how can you work together to do the types of things that we were talking about earlier?
Well, I mean, here's the biggest difference. I have spent my entire adult life serving young people, whether it's in school as a basketball coach. I mean, I've spent most of my career in K-12 education. I didn't do other stuff. This is what I've done. I'm not a politician. I'm not a politician running for political office. I'm an educator running for office. And I believe that's the greatest distinction. He was a teacher for 3 years, 20 years ago. And so does he have some experience in K-12? Yeah, he does. But I would say the position of leading K-12 education should be someone who's led education. I have won awards at every level. At the White House, I've won awards at national level, local level, as a classroom teacher, an instructional coach, an administrator. I have demonstrated excellence at every level. I've closed gaps at every single level that I've worked. And so I believe I've demonstrated that I know what I'm talking about. I've demonstrated that I know how to bring people together from a variety of arenas. And I think my record speaks for itself. I'm the mom of 3 public school educated kids. All 3 of them have learning differences, and we managed to get them all through school and to college. And so I believe I have experience both as an insider and an outsider to do this work well. I've worked on both sides of our state. I have visited with over 70,000 people across our state in the last year and a half. I believe I have my finger on the pulse of our state and believe I can well represent us. Just to add, I am the first African American woman to run for state office. And so to be first out of 9 people as the first African American woman to run for office is it's humbling. Wow. It's humbling. And I know that what I represent is bigger than just this office. It's when I march in parades in Southeast Seattle and people are yelling from their rooftops and they want to take selfies, I realize that what I represent is hope for a generation that has not seen a leader who looks like them. I wear my hair like this intentionally because I want our young women to see that they can be beautiful just the way they are, just the way it grows out of their head. And I'm really intentional about that. And I think we need an authentic leader with a vision for all children, not just some children, and someone who's demonstrated they've been effective with all children and with educators.